7:04. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Present.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Items to be added to the agenda. Councilor Urban.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the council add a discussion regarding the direction for the development of the Cleveland property be added to the agenda for tonight, probably under business from the city council. I propose after item E.
After item B.
Concerns the council.
Second.
We have a motion with the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Action items on the agenda. I see none. Public hearings, none. Consent agenda. Oh, appearance of, I apologize. Appearance of interested citizens. I was just going to skip over you all. Items not on the agenda. Ms. Wheeldryer.
All right. Cindy Wheeldryer, 100 Bennett Creek Road. The city limits is literally at the bottom of my driveway. So I'm just a golf ball shot away from being a city resident. I'm here tonight to tell you just how proud I am, the honor that I feel of being the community reporter for the Cottage Grove Sentinel. And I know that this is a time in our city's history where it's not as easy as it used to be to grapple with some of the incredible issues that are facing our community. And since the Sentinel hasn't hired a staff reporter yet, my side hustle of one feature story a week has now moved me into more of a staff reporter position. And in doing so, I have a wonderful editor, Jeremy Ruark, who is a virtual editor. He's based out of Portland, but he is wonderful. He's retired. The community country media brought him out of retirement to be the Sentinel editor. And he pretty much lets me pick the stories that I want to write. And I want to say that I am so proud of my city because I had the opportunity to spend all 6 hours with y'all 2 Saturdays ago. The fact that y'all gave up a huge part of your weekend to take head on this whole issue of the challenges of how to manage the growing number of unhoused people in our community, and how proud I was of how well y'all overlapped. I mean, we may have different opportunities ahead of us that y'all would take, but the fact that there was a willingness to listen to what St. Benny's had to say, to listen to what staff said, to listen to each other, made me very proud. And my story will be in this week's issue. It's only $1 on the newsstands. And the other thing I wanted to mention was I had the joy of riding along with some of our Cottage Grove police officers on Memorial Weekend. And I thought that perhaps being a holiday weekend, that it would be a little more active with people that were perhaps not making the best choices for obvious reasons, being a holiday and celebrating. And unfortunately, Mayberry was on full display on Friday and Saturday, and there weren't very many calls that that I was able to observe. But what I did see was that we have some amazing young police officers that are serving our community. And I'm running out of time. So the last thing I want to say is I want to thank Chief Corey for allowing me to do that. I shouted some dispatchers. And the last thing is I want to give kudos to Mike Flint and the members of the VFW and the American Legion. They put on an absolutely wonderful, meaningful, poignant ceremony yesterday. And it took a lot of work. You know, the World War II generation is pretty much gone, and they get smaller and smaller every year. But those that came were very much in love with their country and felt the honor of being there to recognize the sacrifices made for the freedoms we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. And I want to say, even when I lived out of state, my birthday present every year from my family was a subscription to the Sentinel. So thank you for keeping that going. All right, items on the agenda. Art Lancaster.
Can you hear me? Here recently, I guess I was told when I was in the hospital that there was some emergency assistance that was given to Cottage Grove for injured people, injured homes, because it was an emergency situation. But yet, in the hospital, I was drugged. I was in the hospital for 5 weeks. My wife had to not only go back and forth to work, but back and forth to the hospital multiple times, twice a day to the hospital, once before work, once after work, besides working in Springfield. And it's hard. That's with the fuel prices these days. I couldn't help. I was in the hospital. I had frostbite. I had multiple surgeries. And I never heard about it again until recently, that there was funds available. And I know there's other people in this city that either passed because of one reason or another during the ice storm, or others that were injured, but nobody knows about it. Why? Why wasn't anybody told that the assistance was there? This is our community here, guys. It shouldn't always be about one group of people. You've got multiple nationalities, multiple colors, which we all should just be Americans, period. However, all you guys care about is one group of people. And I'm not saying all of you, I'm just saying that's the topic every single time. Come on. Let's start talking about the community, not just a group of people in the community. I've had to recently been canvassing the streets, talking to people that live in the neighborhoods of some of these camps. One man can't let his kids play in his yard because he has to go outside and clean up the needles that have been thrown there. Okay, another woman comes home from work and finds them sleeping on her porch.
Thank you, Art.
I'm sorry.
Susan Long,
This evening, able to speak. I just wanted to kind of go along the lines of what Art just spoke about and reiterate about what I spoke about last time, which was the homeless situation. My husband and I, for 16 years, served dinner to anyone that wanted dinner. And of course, a lot of homeless people came. So every Wednesday night, we served dinner to them. And, you know, it was through a church. We offered all kinds of help. We had a clothing closet, extra help, packed lunches for the next day, so on and so forth. And at that time, I think there were 2 or 3 other churches that were doing the same thing. So everybody got fed one night a week through the churches. So we knew that. My husband served on the Freezing Nights Committee, which I think originally the Dairy Mart was set up for that, behind the Dairy Mart. And I remember touring that when it first opened. And they explained how it was going to be set up and how it was going to run. And so anyways, he volunteered to do that for quite a few years as well on Freezing Nights. Recently, we live up 22nd Street. We live up 2 pretty good little hills, and we have a gate around, a fence and a gate. We had a woman about dinner time come and knock on the door and ask for money and pain pills. So this is getting really, really out of hand. People are getting frightened. I was without words. That's quite a ways to go from any one of these camps to do that. So that's very frightening. And I too have grandchildren that want to play outside, and am getting worried about that myself. I'm not saying that it's, you know, them against us. What I'm asking and wanting to do in this community is to start moving forward with the situation instead of keep enabling and giving tarps and giving needles and whatever. If we could somehow join together and figure out how to really help these people and get them the true help they need. I mean, if you're strung out on drugs, you just don't decide one day, oh, I'm gonna go get help. I mean, you just don't. I've had addicts in my family. I know how it works, gone through treatment with them. And so that's kind of my soapbox tonight, is hopefully getting to know each person, identifying them, and getting them the proper help. Thank you for having me.
thank you. Public hearings, I see none. Consent agenda. Counselor Irvin?
Mayor, on the Friday agenda session asked, since the consent agenda is typically reserved for items that would not warrant discussion, I'm asking that item A, Pride Month proclamation, be moved to item 11, items removed from consent agenda. If you need a motion, I would move that we make that move.
Second.
I don't believe we actually need a second. I believe anybody can
Can make
remove an
that
item
motion.
from the consent
Okay.
agenda.
So then I would move approval for the consent agenda.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And second,
Oh. Item 7. Oh. Resolutions and ordinances. Item A, an ordinance granting a non-exclusive telecommunications franchise to Ziply Fiber Pacific LLC. Staff report by, says Mr. Boone. Is he online?
Mr. Boone was ill this afternoon and went home, and I'm not sure whether he was going to be able to join us this evening or not. My suggestion would be is that we move this till the next council meeting when he has an opportunity to address it. Unless, Eric, do you want to? Big jump in? Okay. Okay, I was gonna say.
Mr. Stewart?
I'll do my best. So, Mayor and Council, this is a proposed, well, let me just read it. Negotiations with Ziply Fiber Pacific LLC have successfully concluded, and the result proposed is a franchise agreement which is attached. It is now appropriate for council to vote on the attached ordinance. Recommendation is after council deliberation, it is recommended that city council hold the first vote on the attached ordinance. The ordinance was prepared and has been available for at least 1 week prior to the meeting, and the ordinance could be adopted at this meeting if you choose.
Counselor Urban?
Thank you, Mayor. So I am in support of this going forward. I understand it to represent, after quite a bit of conversation, you know, a right sizing of what's fair for service providers coming into Cottage Grove represents no greater, you know, benefit to one over the other in terms of having underground, but it still keeps the fact that undergrounding will happen when it does happen, it will happen together with all the service providers. And maybe hopefully most importantly, represents an opportunity for the competition to come in, and what we've been told for potential significant savings on high-speed internet and other services that run over those same communications lines. So this is one of those times where I feel like we actually have some tangible effect on lowering or providing opportunity for lowering utility costs for citizens of Cottage Grove. So I'm enthusiastic, and I appreciate staff's work to go through with approving with this franchise agreement, and Jake's work on this as well.
Counselor Merriday?
Thank you, Mayor. I was a little confused in the document because near the beginning, it said that all utilities would be undergrounded. And then later it said that I'm not seeing that exactly. I had it under the online version. But I was just wondering, it does not require them to underground at this point unless it's already in that area they would be expanding to if they were such as Sunrise Ridge.
Mayor, Councilor Merriday, that's my understanding is this agreement allows the in the areas that are already undergrounded that you would be required to be undergrounding new facilities in areas where aerial exists, and they can get the agreements necessary to allow the additional aerial line for the service. They're allowed to do that. And as Councilor Irvin said, that at any time when it's required, all the utilities would be share the cost of going underground when they're told to do that.
Yeah, I just wish I could put my finger on it. I saw it very clearly and go, what? What's that? What? 5.10.
Legal counsel?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councilors. Armand Resto Spots, City Legal tonight. Carrie Connolly was unavailable, so thank you for having me as a replacement. To your point, Counselor, this draft has gone through a number of revisions, and the language that you are looking at is, I believe, on page 2 of the franchise agreement itself. All facilities shall be installed and operated underground. And then in a latter section, in section 5.10.2, it captures the instances where undergrounding is actually required. I would recommend, given that Jake is unavailable tonight, I would recommend we might want to clean that up. We might want to revise that initial statement that all facilities are required to be underground. Revise that out, since section 510 is the very particular section on undergrounding. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, as I wasn't here at the last council meeting, but that section is supposed to capture council's intent about where facilities were intended to be undergrounded. So if we have another month, I would propose that we make that revision.
Thank you, and thank you for letting me know where that was. I see it now clearly.
Mayor, if I might ask legal counsel, is it possible to change the item where in the beginning of the ordinance that guides the undergrounding or the allowable aerials, so that could this be changed and not be a substantive change, or is your recommendation a substantive change and would need to be reread?
Are you talking about for ordinance purposes or for the negotiation with Ziply?
For the ordinance purposes, because I think the intent, my understanding is that everybody agrees that if it's a new and it's in a new development and everything's underground, it has to be underground. If it's in the older part of town, hypothetically, that's already existing aerial, that there are circumstances where aerial could be utilized. And I believe that's captured in, as you stated, the undergrounding portion of 5.10. So
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. If we made the revision, we would have to renotice the ordinance as a new, it would be different. It would be a new agreement, even though it'd be a minor change.
Okay.
To be honest, I don't think it's too inconsistent that council could proceed, because there is a specific section on undergrounding that would be the pertinent section regardless if there was ever any confusion on the matter. It's very particular in all instances where undergrounding is required and where it's not, being new areas. So yes, it's up to council. I just thought, since we have another month, renoticing the ordinance might not be too big of a problem, but that's up to council.
Counselor Irvin.
Thank you. Given that input, would it be prudent for us, we could proceed with this and then staff could bring back an amendment in the future, properly noticed, but that would keep the timeline moving. It would provide the opportunity for Ziply to come in and do the work. I know they were targeting a specific season, even so a month can make a big difference.
Any more discussion? Counselor Flack.
Well, I guess I'll just start off where I was adamantly opposed initially, just because we fought so hard with the utilities over the years for this undergrounding. It's been a big issue, many, many times. And we've done it ourselves. I remember when we did our new lifting station over there in Taylor, that became an issue going under the freeway. So, I mean, it is inconvenient, but as the ice storm just showed us, having utilities underground certainly is advantageous when inclement weather comes. That being said, I was thrilled that there was a compromise where we wouldn't be putting any more poles in per se, and we wouldn't be adding any more of the, problematic aerial lines, just giving a fair playing field, as Councilor Irvin said, to folks who've been able to, utilize those services over the years. So I do support this. I do worry a little bit about passing an ordinance and then wanting to amend it. I guess the question would be, what if Zipley didn't agree with the amendment? I guess I'm a little, because it seems like we could put this on our next agenda, so it's not even a full month. And I understand we're in construction season, so I mean, I know that that's probably bearing down on this. And I guess I'd love to hear from staff, if they think going to the next meeting is a huge challenge, because that'd be my preference. But oh, I gotcha. Okay, well, I will support passing this in an effort to make it, advantageous for them, but I really would like to see that cleared up. I do think the language is clear enough in that we will be establishing, what we're proposing, our attorney has us.
I was just going to add, Zipley as a franchisee is obligated to accept the franchise. So if they don't accept in 30 days, it's not effective. So that's essentially, they still have to agree to the terms.
Any more discussion?
Ordinance number?
Ordinance?
This will be ordinance number 3183.
Is there a motion?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, pen is dying here. I move that the council adopt ordinance number 3183.
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Savage. Aye. Counselor Stennett.
Aye.
Counselor Merida.
Aye.
Counselor Dreer. Aye. Counselor Fleck.
Aye.
Counselor Irvin.
Aye.
Mayor Soulsby.
Aye. Motion carries. Item B. An ordinance amending the City of Cottage Grove Municipal Code Title 14 Land Use Map, the citywide zoning map for Dowgeld LLC ZC 1-2455 South 17th Street, map tax lot 20-03-28-44-02-900 parcel 2 of CG file number P2-24. Staff report by Assistant City Planner Lenny Crow.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The applicant has applied for a zone change for parcel 2 of pending Cottage Grove partition file P2-24, which is addressed as 55 South 17th Street. This application proposes to change the zoning from C2P Community Commercial to RC Residential Commercial, which is an approved zoning district for the C Community Commercial Comprehensive Plan designation. Per subsection 14.47.400, the Planning Commission shall review and decide upon land use district map changes that do not involve comprehensive plan map amendments through a type 3 application procedure. The Planning Commission held a public hearing for ZC 1-24 on May 15th, 2024, voting 6-0 in favor of changing the zoning from C2P Community Commercial to RC Residential Commercial. As the Planning Commission does not have the ability to adopt an ordinance, Council is now being asked to ratify the Planning Commission's decision to approve ZC 1-24 by adopting the prepared draft ordinance. This ordinance has been available for more than 1 week prior to this meeting and can be adopted at one meeting. Staff is recommending adoption.
Any questions? Counselor Fleck.
So if this is a type 3 process, but it has to come to council, I guess it seems odd. Are we charging any more to the applicant for this extra step? Okay, because that's my concern is, type 3 usually ends with the Planning Commission, which is appealable to the council. And I guess I just, yeah, it seems odd, but we don't do this very often, so I'm in support. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mayor, I move that the council adopt ordinance 3184.
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Dreer.
Aye.
Counselor Merida.
Aye.
Counselor Stennett.
Aye.
Counselor Irvin,
Aye.
Counselor Fleck,
Aye.
Counselor Savage,
Aye.
Mayor Sosby.
Aye. Thank you. Business from the city council. Item A, rescind declaration of emergency for January 13th, 2024 winter ice storm. Staff report by Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. So on January 14th, 2024, when I was interim city manager, I issued a local declaration for an emergency following the winter ice storm that was knocked down hundreds of trees, blocking roads and causing a citywide power outage that lasted for at least 6 days. On Friday, January 19th, 2024, the city council reaffirmed the declaration of the state of the emergency and authorized Mayor Soulsby to sign the declaration. After nearly 4.5 months, the city staff and contracted tree removal companies have removed all life safety and health hazards, restored all roads, trails, parks, facilities, and Middlefield Golf Course damaged from the winter storm. On April 15th, 2024, President Biden approved the federal disaster assistance to assist local governments on a cost-sharing basis for recovery of the storm damage. City staff has formally requested assistance. And I would share with you at the time of this writing, I hadn't had our first phone conversation with FEMA, but we met our project coordinator and are working to schedule our second meeting. In that meeting, I would share some new details that I learned that from 2019 to date, 2024, there's been some changes in what's eligible for reimbursement by FEMA. Previously in 2019, all staff labor wasn't eligible unless it was unbudgeted, like overtime. And I since learned that for storm debris removal, that staff time and the equipment are billable, allowed items to be billed. So out of the 2.926, $2,926,508.14, we should be able to be eligible for 75% of that cost to be reimbursed. And I would share that just under $2 million is what was spent for contracted labor force and materials that we purchased outside of our budget. So we should be able to recover those funds, and the stormwater reserve fund will be able to be replenished and paid back for covering the storm costs. During this evening's public comment, there was a comment talked about folks not being aware of the situation, and I'll share that, communication is a really difficult challenge in our community. We try hard to get the message out, and we're looking at new tools potentially that'll help us connect better with the citizens. There was, according to my understanding, there was 5 individuals that perished during this storm. Whether it was, I think, 2 in house fires and 3 that were from asphyxiation from carbon monoxide poisoning. In my conversations with the hospital to get a number of who they felt they treated during that period of time, they felt that they were treating at least 30 members in our surrounding area for some sort of an injury or health-related cause that was directly related to the ice storm. A good majority of those were carbon monoxide poisoning, where they had to help people deal with that. There was heart issues. There was also broken bones because of the situation with the freeway being closed. The ambulance wasn't able to transfer folks to the metro area to the hospital. So a lot of the people that had to be seen by specialists to reset bones and that were just, luckily they were able to be taken care of at the hospital. So there was a lot of individuals that were personally impacted by this storm. I would share too that my understanding is I'm not aware of specific funding that's available. And that being said, I believe that there might be something that Red Cross did some surveys of individuals in the community. They tried to understand how personal property, private property owners, the damage that they suffered And we're looking for vehicles to try to find resources to help people that needed the money. The state emergency office was also looking for avenues to see if there were state funds that might be available to backfill, but the FEMA money specifically that the city is able to go after is really for city government or Lane County as government entities that have the ability, like the power companies and that, to seek reimbursement. My recommendation would be for the individual to potentially contact Lane County and talk to the new emergency manager, Tiffany Brown. She may know more specifically about what's available to private citizens, if anything at all. But I know that in our conversation with FEMA, they started our meeting by talking about how remorseful they felt for the individuals that perished in the event, and they also stated, which I think is a testament to our staff here, that they felt we did an excellent job in the documentation and where we've set the city up to seek reimbursement. In fact, they said they would probably like to use this as a model to other cities. So Sean and I and all the public works staff and everybody that was involved, whether it was setting up the shelter with Mr. Boone and Ms. Cowan, everybody that was involved, I think we were a shining star according to FEMA on how we addressed this storm. So with that, I would say that we believe that it's time for the council to consider rescinding the emergency, as we've pretty much as a city taken care of most everything that would be reimbursable or the need for this declaration to stay in existence.
Counselor Flack.
Well, I'll start by saying, yeah, I look at what other cities did and I really commend our city. We really stepped up where not all cities jumped in as quickly or did as thorough a job. And so I really want to give high praise for the staff at the city. As many know, it was very difficult those first few days, and it was pretty slow getting better. Communication certainly was a huge challenge. I'm uncertain if maybe we're talking about the grant funding that community sharing gave out. Were those the funds we're talking about? Yeah, so we literally ended up with funding that came in a very brief time, and we actually ended up getting out over $32,000 in 3 days. As you can imagine, there was huge demand for those funds and they went very quickly. It was one of those, I believe social media was the primary focus of trying to get that out. But all of the funders, all of the grantors that gave us the funds wanted us to get those dollars out into the hands of the community as fast as we could. That's really all any of us can do, is do the best we can. So I certainly apologize if folks did not, get an opportunity for those funds. They were, it was very, very tough for all of us. So that I will just share that I apologize if somebody didn't gain access to that. With that, once again, kudos to the city, and I'll move that the city council rescind the declaration of emergency that we declared on January 13th, 2024 for the ice storm.
Second.
We have a motion with a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Mr. Stewart, that name for emergency management, you said Tiffany Brown?
Yes, Tiffany Brown is the Lane County Emergency Manager.
Thank you. All right. Item C. Oh, let's see. Now we'll go to council approved purchase of public utility easement from Leah Richards, revocable trust, staff report by Public Works, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At the work session, I was able to share with you an aerial photograph that showed where our recently purchased future reservoir site is, and what this one and the following item are both easements that would allow the city to install a new distribution line from that future reservoir across Mrs. Richards and Mr. Childs' property to connect into the top of Taylor Avenue, which would essentially help us build some redundancy in our current water distribution system. Because right now everything goes to our 2 reservoirs and are dispersed through one pipe into our system throughout the town. So worked with Ms. Richards. I'll just start with Ms. Richards, this one. So I just explained, the city owns a 1.5 acre parcel for a future reservoir off of 22nd Street. To connect the reservoir into the existing water distribution system at the east end of Taylor Avenue, the city needs to purchase a small portion of property for a public utility easement for a future water main line. City staff approached Leah Richards, trustee and property owner, to see if she'd be willing to sell a portion of her property to accommodate a future water line. She agreed to consider the request. Staff worked with branch engineering and legal counsel to draft a public utility easement for the water main line. The easement is approximately 140 square feet in size and needed to connect the line into the existing water main line at the end of East Taylor Avenue. The city has offered Ms. Richards $1,000 for the easement, and she has accepted. Attached is the public easement and exhibits. And staff recommends the purchase of the 140-foot public utility easement from Leah Richards Revocable Trust and authorize the city manager to sign any necessary documents.
Counselor Flack?
Madam Mayor, I move that I move that the council purchase 140 square feet of public utility easement from Leah Richards Revocable Trust and authorize the city manager to sign all necessary documents.
Second. We have a motion of the second. Any discussion?
It's unusual language to me that the council is making this purchase. Is that correct? Or would we authorize the city manager to make the purchase and sign all necessary documents, or the city to make the purchase?
Yeah, well, it's the city that's doing the purchase, and it would be authorizing the city manager to perfect that purchase. So
Language is sufficient to get the job done. All right.
Any other discussion? We have a motion with a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. All right. We have an item that we've added to the agenda with Mr. Mongan.
Mayor, we got one more
Oh,
easement.
we'll do item C. Item C, council. Oh, we're gonna do that one. Item C, okay. Get me confused. Item C, council approved purchase of a public utility easement from Jimmy A. Childers Revocable Trust. Staff report by Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is in conjunction with the first item. Essentially, it's to purchase. This one's a pretty extensive easement across Mr. Child. It's approximately 2,745 feet in length and 20-foot wide with easement crossing 2 of Mr. Childer's properties to make this connection. As before, I met with Mr. Childers and his wife, and they were receptive of the considering an agreement. I worked with branch engineering and legal counsel to create the documents, and it ended up, the easement is approximately 55,197 square feet in size and follows along Mr. Childer's property lines to connect the line to the existing main line at the end of East Taylor Avenue. The city has offered the trustees $55,197 for the easement, and they have accepted. Attached is the public utility easements. I'll try to do a little better. Staff recommends council authorize the purchase of the 55,197 square feet public utility easement from Jimmy A. Childers Revocable Trust and authorize the city manager to sign all necessary documents.
Councilor Urban.
I would make that motion that the council authorize staff to make the purchase of the 155 or 55,197 square foot public utility easement from Jimmy A. Childers Revocable Trust, and authorize the city manager to sign all necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion with the second. All those in favor, do you have discussion?
Just a question to Director Stewart. The nature of this land, is it forest land or is it likely to ever be in our easement ever impinged on or?
Mayor and Councilor Meriday, this property does, or this easement is virtually all on, I believe it's all on F2 county zone forest land. It is outside of our urban growth boundary. I'm not going to say never, but it may be a considerable amount of time before it would be ever considered to be within the urban growth boundary because of state law requirements on expansion. You look to natural resource areas in last resort, and this being forest land, I don't know that it would ever be brought into the city limits. Probably not in my tenure here, but maybe someday.
Thank you.
Any others? We have a motion with the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. All right, now we have an item added to our agenda.
No, not yet.
Oh, you want me to go clear to the bottom? All right, never mind. Item D, award of Bohemia Park Expansion Entry Plaza Project Contract. Staff report by Mr. Stewart.
And Mayor, if I might remind you that this was an item you were going to
Yes, I
recuse
will.
yourself from.
Recuse myself.
So, Council President and Council, so on April 12th, 2024, Cottage Grove posted an invitation to bid for the Bohemia Park Expansion Entry Plaza Project. Sealed bids were due by 2 p.m. May 8th of 2024 at Branch Engineering, which is located at 310 5th Street in Springfield. The intent to bid was advertised on April 12th in the Daily Journal of Commerce. 2 bids were received and opened on May 8th. The bids ranged from $1,709,550.95 to $2,154,821. Both bids were reviewed by Branch Engineering and were determined to be responsive but over the available project construction budget of $1,350,000. The project involves the construction of the new park amenities that include installation of a water tank as a water feature, a splash play area, public restrooms, walkways, playground, landscaping, features in the north of the undeveloped portion of Bohemia Park and Cottage Grove. The work involves site preparation, excavation, grading, compaction for the building pad and foundation, utility connections to the public or the building, including wastewater, service pipe, water service lines, rock, concrete, paving, and restoration. The engineer's estimate for the project was approximately $1,050,000 to $1.2 million. Under OS 279C.340 and City Rule 137-048-0430 allows the city to negotiate with the lowest responsive bidder and attempt to bring the contract within the contracting agency's cost estimate. City and branch engineer staff worked with the low responsive bidder, which is Pacific Excavation, to discuss options to bring the proposed contract into the project cost estimate. The following items were removed or changed from the Bohemia Park Expansion Entry Plaza to bring the proposed contract within the project estimate. First is the water tank and the electronic reader board was to be removed, but kept the installation of the footings and conduits so that the tower can be added when funds are available. And I would share that the Bohemia Foundation resource development individual is actually actively looking for and preparing to write grants for these items that have been removed. hopefully will be successful over the next 6 months. The second is reduce the amount of colored concrete. Third is remove the art platforms and replace with concrete bulb outs at the sidewalk level. Remove 5 large trees, 2 segments of sidewalk, increasing green space for local sports use. We've noticed that William Park's been used for South Valley athletics, most recently soccer fields for the younger teams. Second, we reduce the topsoil line item and reuse the existing topsoil and remove basalt seat benches along the splash pad and replace with concrete benches. So that brought the total cost of the contract down to $1,300,569.55. And it is the recommendation of to City Council to move to award the Bohemia Park Expansion Entry Project Plaza Project to Pacific Excavation and authorize the city manager to sign the contract and all associated documents provided no protests were received. And at this time, no protests have been received. And the prevailing company has received the letter of notice of award, which all has been done. I would share that the funds will come from the Economic Development Administration. That's approximately $1.1 million from the EDA, and then an additional almost $350,000 from Oregon State Parks local government grants. And the remaining that will come from the city's SDC park funds for a total of the total project, including the engineering and the owner provided items, is $1,650,000. There is approximately $75,000 in contingency available, that provided there's some sort of unforeseen item that was missed in the construction. So once again, it's our recommendation that the project be awarded to Pacific Excavation.
Councilor Fleck.
Council President Irvin, I move that the City Council award the Bohemia Park Expansion Entry Plaza Project to Pacific Excavation and authorize the city manager to sign the contract and all associated documents, provided no protests, which I'm understanding aren't, but are received, and the prevailing company has received the intent, which it sounds like they already have.
Yeah, sorry.
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Discussion. On Friday, we briefly touched on the signage, the reader board aspect of the park. I believe that was one of the changes, and I think you had some information on.
The electronic reader board was in conjunction with a water tower item. It was just a historical feature, and it's one that we intend to continue to fundraise for. So as I mentioned, the Lund Development is currently preparing grant applications for resources to make up the difference for this item through the Bohemia Foundation. And I would also share that I was on a call for state emergency management funds that were available. There might be an opportunity to apply. We'll work with Lane County's Ms. Brown in a future meeting. She's trying to coordinate a meeting for us to talk about, see if these electronic reader boards might be available for funding through that source as a public notice for emergency events. We have, that being said, we have the one at Benny Humble Park that's been out and it's not able to be repaired. So we're hoping that there might be an opportunity for us to apply for funding through the state's Office of Emergency Management too.
Thank you. Definitely support that. All right, so we have the motion in the second, and will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Dreer,
Aye.
Counselor Merity,
Aye.
Counselor Stennett,
Aye.
Counselor Irvin,
Aye.
Counselor Fleck,
Aye.
Counselor Savage.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Counselor. President Urban. I recused myself because our son he works for Pacific Excavation. All right. Annual Urban Forestry Committee report to City Council. Staff report by Mr. Mongan.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I will now present the 2024 State of the Trees Address. All 7 seats on the Urban Forestry Committee are filled at this time. Justin Tidrick and Richard Vasquez are the newest members on the committee. Justin brings a background in landscape management, as well as a bachelor's degree in horticulture. He was inspired by the recent ice storm to apply for this committee, as he has lived in this town for an extended period of time and wished to help contribute to the Urban Forestry Committee. Richard is a member of Lane County Parks and Recreation Board and brings a passion to explore how we can cultivate a better environment for both the urban forest and urban development. Justin and Richard, along with our longtime committee members, Riley Newman, Mark McCaffrey, Jimmy Shaper, Deborah Bartlett, and Paul Higgins, are excited and determined to help make Cottage Grove's urban forest better and more resilient, not only to weather events, but to natural pests like the emerald ash borer. The city received its 30th Tree City USA Award this year. The Tree City USA Award is not only hard to say, but is given to cities who meet specific criteria as established by the Arbor Day Foundation. These criteria include such things as having an annual Arbor Day or Arbor Month proclamation, hosting an Arbor Day celebration, maintaining an urban forestry committee, which includes the number of hours the committee spends on the urban forest activities and events, maintaining a tree ordinance, and spending up to $2 or more per capita on urban forestry related programs. The city also received its 7th Growth Award from the Arbor Day Foundation. The Growth Award program is used by the Arbor Day Foundation to encourage Tree City USA members to go beyond the minimum standards for the Tree City USA. This year, the city received a Growth Award for adopting a citywide urban forest management plan, which council adopted in December of 2023. The Urban Forestry Committee and city staff planted 3 beautiful dogwoods along South 5th Street near the intersection of Monroe Avenue on April 6th for our annual Arbor Month celebration, which garnered the attention and appreciation of the neighbors. It was a great opportunity to connect with the residents and explain what this committee does as well. As ensure, we will be in the running for our 31st Tree City USA Award this coming year. While there are no applications for tree removal in the past 12 months following the ice storm, the city arborist, Chris Centers, and contracted tree removal companies work diligently to remove dead, damaged, and unsafe trees and limbs throughout the entire city. This was an unfortunate but opportune time to help keep the urban forest canopy up to code and ensure the safety of our residents, which included trimming branches above sidewalks and the right of way. A total of 6,761 and a half hours of city time were spent on the tree cleanup and other emergency operations. This total amount of time did not include the contracted companies who assisted in the cleanup. As it is become affectionately called, Mount Rushmore, of March 15th, 2024, a total of 579 loads of brush, 253 loads of chips, and 25 loads of debris were picked up during the community limb pickup. This was a tremendous weather event, which helped the Urban Forestry Committee center on how they continue to work with and better serve the community. For the 2024-25 fiscal year, the committee will revisit the year's priority list to accommodate for the ice storm damage, as well as work to implement the items of the recently adopted Urban Forest Management Plan. One of the ways that the Urban Forestry Committee has already implemented the Urban Forest Management Plan is by removing all ash trees from the approved street tree list, which council approved at its last meeting. Additionally, the committee intends to dive into the adopted Parks Master Plan this year to find ways of integrating that plan with the Urban Forest Management Plan, specifically when it comes to replanting trees within Coiner Park. The committee will have a booth again at the annual preparedness fair where they plan to focus on pruning tips, outreach about the emerald ash borer, and how to better prepare residents' trees for another severe weather event. Additionally, the city contracted with the Freshwater Trust for a 20-year replanting program for a stretch of the the West Bank, of the Row River near Row River Nature Park. The goal of this project is to repair the riparian area along the river and provide a clean environment with rich native species. Lastly, the Urban Forestry Committee, excuse me, and the Cottage Grove community lost Susan Johnson this past year. Susan had been a member of the Urban Forestry Committee from 1994 to her passing in 2023. She was instrumental in Cottage Grove's urban forest management. It provided great insight and passion to all things trees, bringing ideas and solutions on the Emerald Ash Board to the community, researching grants, and helping to create the urban forest management plan. We'll remember Susan and her contributions to the community and this committee, and we're thankful for the time that we had with her. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mongan.
So I just wanted to share too that in conjunction with Susan Johnson, in her memory, the Earth and Social Justice Committee from the Presbyterian Church donated 2 flowering cherry trees, which city staff planted over in Coiner Park, over near the Peace Tree Plaza area that I know was important to Miss Johnson. So I really thank her and her family and the Earth Social Justice Committee for making that contribution in her memory, and we'll do our best to keep them alive and flourish for many years to come. I would also like to thank Deborah Bartlett and her husband Don Rust for being present. Deborah is an incredibly passionate individual that serves on our urban forestry committee, and really has a lot of, you start talking about trees, you will understand how passionate Deborah is for improving our tree canopy and greening Cottage Grove, making a better place to live.
Thank you. I hate to do this to you, Eric, but we're circling back. For direction on lot plotting, Mr. Monken.
Share my screen.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So at the executive session preceding tonight's meeting, staff presented to council some 3 letters of intent regarding the Cleveland Street property that the city purchased in the summer of 2023. At this time, council is requesting direction regarding how to proceed with the initial land division. As you can see in the drawing that is presented on the screen, staff is inquiring or requesting direction on applying for a 3-lot partition that would create 3 lawful units of land that could later be transacted upon refinement of letters of intent and/or purchase and sale agreements.
Councilor Fleck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we had quite a discussion around, it's the area in the southwest, that partial right where your pointer's at. And so do we need to be specific as to options, or can we just give you general direction to create 3 plats in that approximation based on further negotiations? Would that be acceptable?
That's what staff is looking for, yes.
Because that's where I'm at, because I think that, some of the concerns are around, making sure that we were developing the land as efficiently as possible. And I think that leaving it kind of vague until we actually make the the actual sales agreements and whatnot, I think is prudent.
Any other discussion? No?
Do you need a motion? So I will just go ahead and move then that we authorize staff to create 3 partitions effectively in those general proximity of the lines up on the map, so that we can work on sales agreements and finalize the direction of this development. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion with the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Concerns from council? Counselor Irvin.
Thank you, Mayor. So coming back from Budget Committee and the recommendation that was moved on. First, I want to say, Mr. Merryday, I know you said, let's have all the discussion right then and there. And certainly that was the intent. But I woke up the next morning after remulling over how that ended. And I was left feeling like I didn't do what I ought to have done in terms of expressing a direction. And so I sought I reached out to our city manager, and the question I asked was, do you feel like you have clear direction? And I believe his quote was, I think my feet are firmly planted in thin air, both of my feet, something to that effect. It was like, okay, that's kind of how I felt too. If I was to put myself in that position, and the way I'd represent it was, hey, use the existing numbers, but minimize your spending in all ways possible. And we'll see how it goes. And I thought, well, that puts all of the, let's say, bad press, bad, potential cultural impacts of an organization all on the city manager, when it's really us that are supposed to be giving clear direction about here's the dollar amount that you have to work within. And then, he makes the appropriate decisions from there. So that's what I was wrestling with, that direction. And, hearing how the vote went and what was being expressed, we're not voting on this tonight, obviously, but I wanted to, just in good faith and discussion, say there would be 2 changes that I would lean towards making in the light of our budget situation. And that would be keeping in mind as much as possible in agreement with the direction that the city manager has expressed, which is how do we retain, don't minimize the services, the level of service that we're providing to the community, but do so in a creative manner or in a way within the staffing decisions. And so targeting, minimizing any degradation to the services delivered, I would look at both the community services and the library as departments and say, where, if any, really in any of the departments, but those are the ones that I'm wanting to get back actual numbers. What were the service levels before under different staffing models? What would be a dollar amount that, when I think it's on the 24th or the 28th, whenever we actually are passing the budget, that I would make a motion to that end. Doesn't obviously have to pass, but that would be me faithfully representing what I think, and which I wish I would have done in the budget process. So I guess I welcome the discussion, and hopefully that leaves plenty of time to mull over things. But I just wanted to own that and bring that up.
Anyone else? Counselor Dreher.
Thank you, Mayor, Council President. The Budget Committee and the past week's discussions really gave me pause, not just because I got really, really sick after the whirlwind of meetings we were in, over 15 hours of meetings in that 1 week. I'd really like to see us move forward with a public safety work session, the same way that we had a homelessness work session, where I think it may have already been on our list of future items to talk about what does public safety look like in our community? What does the community want? And what can we afford, honestly? I do think I thought really long and hard looking at the budgets. I think it's a bit of a false comparison to say you could meaningfully take something from the library or community services and make any meaningful impact with the police department budget, because the constraints are so large and the needs of the public safety budget are so large and important. So I'm not sure what we could do that would actually be meaningful. I do think that funding the public safety system that the public deserves and expects is a statewide and nationwide challenge. I know the county is looking at a public safety service district. The county has had a successful jail levy, but that's only for 5 years at a time. Meanwhile, in Coos Bay, that a public safety levy was just voted down. So I'm not sure what our community is really willing to pay for, and really demands. I'm very concerned about the conversation that 911 dispatchers are so understaffed. Not only is our dispatching office understaffed, but Central Lane is as well. So even if, oh, well, if we're understaffed, it'll just go to Central Lane, but they're understaffed too. The whole system's constrained, and that really concerns me. My sister was a police dispatcher, and I know how difficult that work is when you're the one on the phone and somebody's in crisis and calling you. So I am very concerned about, okay, we're churning through people. Like I said, again, I'd like to have a work session on public safety, all encompassing, including what the municipal court as part of that conversation. How does that play into what the new deflection program is going to be at the county, whether that can help deflect folks away from our public safety system and the 911 system. I'm also concerned, I don't want to move backwards or think that, oh, we have this amazing and incredible police chief, which we do, but now all our problems with the police department are over and all the change has been made, because that's not true. And we don't want to move backwards or lose momentum. I do think the current budget is a speed bump that we have to get over, and I think it deserves more discussion. I have a general proposal. I wonder if we usually meet 2 times a month, and I wonder if just for a few months or at certain times we could consider one meeting being a regular city council meeting and the other one being a work session, so we can deep dive into some of these issues that we always want to, and just use that regular meeting space so long as it doesn't impede on the normal business. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Anyone else? Well, I appreciate that suggestion and like it, and would welcome that. And I actually agree with Counselor Irvin too. I think we need to seriously look at budget moving forward, and we're going to have to probably work some things out, because we're going to have to figure out ways to save money, sadly, because we're going to continue to go down this road if we don't figure this out. And I wasn't particularly happy with it, and that's why, and sadly, I voted no on it. But yeah, I would welcome some work sessions. I think that's an excellent idea, Counselor Jar. All right. Business from the city manager. Homelessness work session follow-up, staff report by Mr. Sauerwein.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. We're going to pass out some paper here to you and get a PowerPoint up on the screen. Well, what I'd like to do this evening is really two things. First, I want to provide a requested update to the history of costs for shelter operations from our work session. And second, I want to review the city staff's recommendations for next steps, where we go from here. So just to jump right into it, included in your packet are the whiteboard pain points. I love that term. I plan to steal it and use it often. And the comment cards from the folks who attended the work session. And we can talk about those, when I'm done with my presentation, if you had any questions about them or wanted to discuss them. As I said, the two things I want to talk about is really the updated cost for shelter operations and city staff's recommendation. So moving to the updated costs, first and foremost, I talked about this at the work session. The numbers that I'm presenting to you are very clean and neat on a PowerPoint slide. They represent a significant amount of hard work by our finance director, Bert, and her team, and also by Faye and the team in Public Works. So I want to tell them how much I appreciate their time and effort so that we could bring you this information. The way we've organized everything in the past, I've kind of redone it a little bit. So if you look at the PowerPoint slides, anything that's updated is in italics or it's underlined. So as we go through this, I just want to be clear what was included in the previous presentation and is now included in this presentation. So for example, on the Douglas Street site for 2001, 2022, we were asked to delineate what was paid for with ARPA funds. And you'll see it noted here that the purchase and demolition was done with ARPA funds. In 2022 and 2023, we've added the cost for site preparation, staff and equipment cost of $51,000. There's a road constructed and the cost for that was about $1,300. And there was additional signage for about $297. The last at the bottom, as we noted, that daily garbage was provided. And we've done that on all of the sites to just demonstrate that. Moving on to 2023, 2024, again, noting that daily garbage was provided. And moving on to the 12th Street site, you'll notice too that there twice that daily garbage was provided in 2022, 2023, and also in 2023, 2024. And also noting that there's been a large cleanup that was done at that site. Cost about $800 to do that cleanup. The cost for that was by adding a couple of dumpsters. Each of those large dumpsters costs us about $400. So doing a cleanup is a bit of a moving target, being able to do that. Chip.
What does daily garbage provided mean from? Was that mean it was donated by the garbage service?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was included in our franchise agreement. Moving on to the 99 site, we had a number of additional costs that been identified and added to the 99 site. First of all, the property purchased with ARPA funds of $210,000. A remodel of the bathrooms, the house, for staff, equipment cost, and materials, that ended up costing about $366,000. Significant cost in staff time and materials and equipment costs. There was an updated and upgraded electrical transformer. We're still working with the utility on identifying those costs. When we have them, we'll certainly provide them to you. Again, daily garbage was provided, and we've noted that the consultant fee was paid for with ARPA funds. Also moving on to the highway site in 2023, 2024. Again, we're noting that the consultant fee was paid for with ARPA funds and that there were daily garbage. So as we talked about at the work session, going forward, we're going to attempt to accurately capture both the hard and soft cost for shelter operations. We're hoping to implement this plan as part of the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget and be able to give you real-time numbers as to how much is being spent. And finally, and most importantly, this is our city staff's recommendations for next steps going forward. So based on our discussion at the work session, what we would recommend is that in cooperation with our friends at St. Vincent de Paul, we develop a business plan for the proposed connector shelter and possibly the Highway 99 shelter, with a very strong emphasis on stable, sustainable, long-term funding, working with the city attorney on the appropriate procurement process for contracting with St. Vincent, whether that's a lease or a contract for service. I'll leave that to Carrie's wisdom. And there'll also be a transition of the 12th Street and Douglas Street shelters to the connector shelter. And this will include a plan for closing the 12th Street shelter and the Douglas Street shelters. And also possibly repurposing the Highway 99 shelter, which will be mothballed at the end of next month. And also looking at repurposing the Douglas Street shelter site. So I'd be happy to take any questions you might have at this time. What staff is looking for is a council consensus on proceeding along the path that we've outlined in staff's recommendations, or if council has different recommendations. But I think we've got good momentum coming out of the work session in addressing this issue. And I don't want to let that momentum die. I really want to keep this ball rolling. So that I'm happy to talk about anything you like. So.
Thank you. Kind of interesting about the procurement and contracting. It seemed to me during the work session, they were actually looking at coming up with the funding themselves.
Yes.
Okay, so would this be around incidental type stuff? Would this be around use of the property? Would this be, what would we be contracting with them for?
With the use of the property would be the biggest issue.
Okay.
And also, you know, if it's going to be a service agreement, then we're going to need to outline the service agreement. You know, me saying a strong emphasis on stable, sustainable, long-term funding is a euphemism for St. Vincent figure out how to pay for it.
Yeah, and they were, I'll be honest, I was just so thrilled with their comments because they seemed really upbeat. They really had an idea of how they were going to be successful. And I think it's just a wonderful step forward. I'm also thrilled if the governor's money does come through, that actually to go through the county. No offense to our city, but we are not used to contracting for shelter work, and the county, this is what they do every day. And so I think that really is a great first step, that we are on their top priority list for funding, one of 3 shelters that they're targeted for additional funding. So super excited about that. You know, just to bring everybody back, it was 2.5 years ago when we were having this conversation. We actually created the Douglas and 12th Street sites as overflow. In fact, they were called overflow for 2 years. And the intent was not that they actually be used, but just in case our shelter filled up, you know, they would be available for folks. Clearly, we had no clue initially at the folks that were in and around the surrounding areas. Obviously, we did become a draw for a number of reasons later. You know, and I guess just to kind of go through some of that, other cities have changed their ordinances, which have also pushed folks around in our communities. So there's a lot of reasons that it's not worth going into, but just to say that I'm super excited, you know, that this might give us some opportunity to improve the situation. I wholeheartedly support all of staff's recommendations here. And I'd be thrilled to look at, you know, the potential of the Douglas Street site becoming some more housing. That was our original intent, and I think that would be a welcome addition. So that's kind of my 2 cents at the moment.
Counselor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify, because I think it was said at the work session, but it wasn't said here, the water on all of these, we don't bill ourselves for water, but if we were to bill ourselves, this is what the water would cost. Is that correct?
Exactly.
So it's
The
a
way we
placeholder.
the way we calculated it was water used at the residential rate if we were billing for it.
Okay, so that's just to clarify. And I had a great conversation with St. Vincent de Paul on that Saturday, and I kind of scolded them and I said, why weren't you here 2 years ago? We wanted you to apply for this RFP, and they let me know that they were going through some internal things and they really were not in a position to be able to offer their services to our location at that time. I think we did the best that we could with the information that we had. We were told to do something, we did something. The intention was to keep folks out of the parks so that parks can be used what the parks were made for. But this really is more in line what I think what we're all after and what we're all looking for. It's humane for those who are unhoused. It's good for the community, and it kind of puts a liability on St. Vincent's to come up with the funding so that the city is not in the business of funding that. So I like this direction. Thank you.
Anyone else? Counselor Mary Day.
So I just wanted to thank the staff and council for for the first giving up your Saturday, and second, the coming to the table with such open minds and hearts to address a serious concern for both society and our community. And I like the direction proposed by city staff, and let's roll up our sleeves and get her done.
Counselor Stennett.
I would echo that sentiment. I wasn't coming to the work session prepared to be encouraged and to feel uplifted by the proceedings. It seemed like what started as a conversation of people yelling at each other across the divide became people coming to the table with a clear set of kind of a shared understanding and a much clearer goal as a community. I appreciate the fact that St. Vincent had a lot of encouraging answers to our questions that made that a lot easier, namely, how are we going to pay for this? It definitely feels a lot better not to be out on an island on our own trying to do that. So I'm encouraged by the direction and momentum as well. Thank you.
Anyone else? Counselor Urban.
Yeah, I share that sentiment. There was a sense of relief in one part. I think we need to continue to stay vigilant. One of the other things I'm encouraged by is the new direction of emphasis on data-driven decisions, and the disposition of St. Vincent to have demonstrated and to say yes, that we provide that. That's just part of what we do. I think we owe it to the residents of Cottage Grove and to the budget and to every other aspect of good governance and decision making. So I am optimistic, and I'm happy to have shared at that time with my fellow council members and moving in a good direction. Thanks.
Well, I'm trying to stay optimistic, but playing the devil's advocate, and I've heard it before, that the Carry It Forward was supposed to come up with the funding and fell short and could not. And we spent almost $1 million building that. And so I would like us to make sure we don't put the cart before the horse. And I would like to see this not be put on us. I would like to see a plan brought before we start from St. Vincent so that we can look at it rationally and show the community if we were to move forward in something like that, so that they could see. And because it's, for me, it's like I've seen what's happened, and I haven't felt like Carry It Forward had a good success rate at all. And so I don't want this to become the same people going in and being in there 10 years later. And and I'd want to see it for our community members, and would want to make sure because we all know we went from 12 tents to what we have now. And so that's makes it a little bit more of a hard sell to the community. And so I just want to be sure that we're not putting a bunch of money into a project that can backfire on us again. Don't want to go down the same road all over again. So that would be my 2 cents. Councilor Flack.
I guess I'm trying to see the downside. I mean, I guess I echo your frustration. I mean, I think all of us have been frustrated with the situation, and I'll be honest, I still am with the way House Bill 3115 ties our hands. I mean, and I'm somebody that, my job every day is to try to help folks, but there needs to be incentive and disincentive. And I think this is where we have gone astray for the client's sake. And I've been saying this all along, and I just didn't have any negative. I mean, I think any improvement is only going to be better. I really can't see any negatives. So, I mean, I understand the lingering, gosh, this hasn't been fun, but boy, I just have not seen any downside at all. So I'm encouraged. And I really want us to keep moving forward. I'm also very fiscally cautious, and so I get what you're saying. But boy, I think that, moving folks into an area that's, less impactful for the residents, I think is good for both those individuals and the residents. I think that having it managed is something I said over and over in the initial conversations, is that we should not have unmanaged camping. Unfortunately, because of the way it worked out, we had unmanaged camping. So no, like I said, I'm super encouraged, and I'm not trying to push back at all. I just want to really focus on, the fact that this is only going to get better from here.
So.
Well, can I then to understand that I have a consensus of the council to work with St. Vincent's to put together a business plan, being mindful of the mayor's comments, that we put, the horse before the cart, and have a business plan that is well funded before we proceed. Is that okay? Thank you very much. That will conclude my report for this evening.
Do we have a Councilor Urban?
The final thought on that is incorporating a public feedback element to that plan, where we can genuinely receive those impressions prior to making any decisions.
Yes. Thank you. Do we have a report by the city attorney?
Nothing to report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Items removed from the consent agenda. Councilor Urban.
Thank you. So I asked for the Pride Month proclamation to be removed from the consent agenda because it's not a thing that I can support. And rather than vote no on the annual liquor license renewals, which I don't have reason to say no to. That's why I asked for it to be pulled off. This is probably, it's a tough one to get clear and right, and I surely won't be understood the way I understand this, but there's probably two main points to this for me. One is the concept of how I understand a proclamation, what value it serves to a community. And, looking back, we've got things like safety declarations, first responders, drownings, the benefit of trees to our community. And these are all things that have a thread across it. It's like, this is what we are declaring to be good for all of the community. And so that's fairly easy to support. So then the next question is, what is this proclamation? And the proclamation is interpreted, or could be, in many different things, because pride means, or the celebration of the LGBTQIA plus group it has a lot of different understandings. And the way I look at it, I don't wish to pontificate, but I don't look at that and say, this is good for Cottage Grove. And so I can't support it. I'm happy to, go into the details if anybody cares to have that conversation. But that's why I had to interact with this way. Thanks.
And I actually don't support it either. But I want to start by saying that some of the people that I've loved most in my lifetime have been gay. And so it is not because I don't support equal rights for all people. I think that's a constitutional value and should always be protected. I think everyone should feel safe. With that being said, I was approached by Counselor Savage with this proclamation saying that Cottage Grove had been criticized last year for not doing this to recognize gay pride. And I asked her if we'd ever done it in the past, and the answer is no. I told her I was going to give it some thought and get back to her, but this is the first time that I ever recall that a motion was made without it just going on the agenda, the consent agenda between the mayor and the city manager. And so I felt very blindsided that I was not included in that conversation. I felt like it was just pushed through without any consideration given to me at all. I did speak with the city manager because I wanted his advice because he has had experience in other cities and what other cities do. And it's kind of diverse across the board. A lot of cities do what I believe and what sounds like Councilor Irvin also believes to be right, where it is most proclamations are, there's one right out there in the hallway. It's a building safety proclamation, public safety, safe roads to school proclamation, community heroes, people that make a difference in the community. And that I understand, but I just don't believe that government should be weighing in on people's sexuality. And it's not that I am judgmental in any way. And you and I, Counselor Savage, have had very deep conversations, and you know that I'm not judgmental in that way at all. And I just believe proclamations need to be city-centric. And so that's where I stand on that. Counselor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. I did talk to you first, and you just stated that I talked to you first.
I told you I was going to give it some thought and get back to you.
And you didn't.
Well, I had a whole month but before the council meeting, you didn't talk to me, and when you actually talked to the city manager, and he told you should talk to me, and you didn't.
I did
Yes.
talk. You said you
No.
were going to get back to me.
No, you were supposed to talk to me before you made the motion. That
You
was his
came in
advice
1 minute.
too.
Sure.
So go ahead.
Thank you. So I did come to you, but your lack of response and not returning back to me prompted the conversation. So while it may not be done all the time, it also wasn't wrong. So I did respect you. I did talk to you, and I'm truly, genuinely apologize if that was not received that way, because that was not the intention. The conversation was with you first. I do believe that this can be utilized as a way to recognize some amazing folks in our community as a city, citizens of the community. So in talking with the hospital, there are many folks that go into the hospital who identify as LGBTQ plus, and they do not feel supported or loved or heard. And so I think a statement by the city saying, we hear you, we see you. It should be as simple as that, because it is for all, because you had just stated that you support all people. You may not agree, and that's okay.
Sorry,
But we do support all folks. And I think that it's important that we recognize that we support all of our citizens instead of just the ones that look like me or behave like me or wear a badge. I mean, we need to support all citizens.
I agree with that, but I truly believe this is tribalism. identity politics. And I don't think the city should play a role in this. And we kind of speak for all citizens. And I don't think that necessarily all citizens agree with this. And so, because this is the proclamation that you made and went to vote, I will, and I know it got a majority vote, and I'm going to go ahead and let you read it with the understanding that what it says in there, like that, you shouldn't be discriminated against by color or by sexual preference, and absolutely, and I agree with that. It's constitutionally correct, but it's just the stance that I don't believe that it belongs with government. So, Mindy, do you have a copy of that proclamation? Counselor Stennett?
We analyze documents all the time. I see this as very similar as a proclamation that it includes certain universalities, or should, among our approach to openness to all citizens. I'd love to know where your pain points are with this, Counselor.
Be happy to talk to you after. This gets into a realm that I don't think is appropriate to just go into here. I mean, I can if you really want to have.
I thought that was your offer. If it's not, that's fine. I mean, if we were.
I don't affirm open relationships. I believe that what I aim at in representing, like in my own actions, my own belief, should be a representation not what I think everybody should just emulate. But my philosophy is that watch the fruit, watch the actions, watch the results. And if you want to know how or what led to those things, then I'm happy to have those conversations. I'm not really one to try, I didn't ask for this conversation. I'm not one to try to push that on anyone else, but I don't celebrate some things that I think are sinful, that I understand to be sinful, and that's the main pain point. If you're going to ask me to celebrate something, which is what I understand pride to be, is a celebration. So I won't, because my conscience I live by my conscience.
Counselor Fleck?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is a really tough subject for us. And I will say, as a person of faith, and I don't bring that up at this dais often because, my job is to represent all citizens, and I wouldn't want folks feeling that I'm, biased in one way or another. But like Councilor Irvin, I also have to follow my moral compass. But I'm very conflicted. We've had incidences in our country where people have, drug gay folks to death. We've had incidences of just, horrible violence, which is just totally unacceptable. I had a lady here in town who apparently was wearing a rainbow colored coat and had somebody throw something out of a vehicle at her. And she didn't even understand that that was a representation of pride. And so I think that one can easily say that, and what I stand for is that every citizen has the rights under our Constitution to freedom, period. It's not my job to judge. In fact, my faith tells me, judge not, lest ye be judged. That being said, we have to have laws on the books to protect people. So this is where it gets muddy and it gets very gray. I totally support people's rights until they impact somebody else's rights. At the end of the day, I think children absolutely have to be protected, period. And so I have concerns on the other side of the fence too. Should we have children going to drag shows? Should we, I do worry for both sides of the fence. And so I can't say to you, I feel one way or the other about this. I feel both ways about this in that we need to protect people. But I also need to support the values of people who have deep faith in what they believe and understand. And I think that if we can get to the point, and I do like the way this is written, basically, that we're talking about rights. We're not talking about, choices. We're talking about people's freedoms. And I support that 100%. The rest of the conversation gets very difficult, which I agree with Councilor Irvin. I don't think is appropriate for this, body, but I do support this in the manner that I support every citizen's right to be safe, to be free, and that's what I'm voting for.
I do too, but that's my issue with calling it pride. Because I support everyone, not just one segment. So with that, I'll let Counselor Savage read the proclamation.
With all due respect, Mayor, you're the one that signs it. I think you should read it or not read it, but that's your choice.
All right.
Can I respectfully disagree? I think that's inappropriate to have somebody read something that they don't feel comfortable with. I would be happy if you're uncomfortable, but I would welcome you to read it or I read it, but I don't think it's right to ask the mayor to.
My apologies. So I thought because she signed it, she had to read it or not, but I would be happy to read that if that's sure.
Thank you.
Is that not the case, just procedurally? I mean,
They
who
can
signs
go
the
on-
proclamation?
it
Does it,
can
does it not
actually-
matter or?
Can actually go on the consent agenda and not be read at all. And so if Counselor Savage would like to read it, she's welcome to.
Okay. Bear with me. I have not done this before. Pride Month Proclamation. Whereas our nation was founded upon and is guided by a set of principles that each person has equal rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And whereas everyone should be able to live without fear of prejudice, discrimination, violence, and hatred based on race, ethnicity, religion, class, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, mental or physical disability, and to be supported by their peers, educators, and community leaders. And whereas this month of June was chosen to commemorate the dedication and bravery of those who led the 1969 uprising at Stonewall Tavern in Greenwich Village, which sparked the modern LGBTQIA+ liberation movement. And whereas for more than 50 years, June has been celebrated as LGBTQ Pride Month nationwide in honor of the citizens that rose up and fought discriminatory laws at Stonewall. And whereas the city of Cottage Grove believes in working together with all of the members of our community to facilitate open relationships, providing safety, dignity, and a welcoming environment for our residents and visitors. And whereas the city of Cottage Grove strives to be a community where everybody is celebrated for our differences rather than being limited by what might divide us. Now, therefore, our mayor, Candace Soulsby, mayor of Cottage Grove, does hereby proclaim the month of June 2024 as Pride Month. In witness whereof Mayor Soulsby has hereunto set her hand and caused the seal of the city of Cottage Grove to be affixed on the 28th of May, 2024.
With that, this meeting's adjourned.